Hey up, it's Steve from the Old Yorkshire Geek, and it's Saturday, which means it's UFO News Day. Got quite a few stories today to look at, so let's just get on with it, shall we? Right, I'm back. By the way, Travis Walton there says hello. Got me Fire in the Sky poster back up again. I thought it was appropriate. I've got some other posters upstairs as well, but this is a big sturdy one, a big display poster that, as I said last week, I got from UFO Data magazine. I don't know if it's Russ's or if it's Philip's. If you're watching, Russ or Philip, and you want the poster back, let us know, and I'll get it back to you. Anyway, right, so UFO news. Let's get the windows up. Spladoosh. There we go. First story. Why? Go away, you. There we go. Sorry. Why science suddenly has a lot to say about UFOs and UAP. UAP. I know, because phenomena. UAP. Phenomena is the plural of phenomenon, so that's why it's not UAPs. Big think, you see. They're thinking about it. UAP are no laughing matter anymore. And there's is that the moon? Oh, I don't know what it is. Right. Key takeaways. The interest in unidentified aerial phenomena has spread beyond the general public and into the scientific community. The reason is simple. We now have the means and the sample size to apply the scientific method to UAP sightings. It's time to get rid of the stigma associated with UAP research. Let science do its work, because the payoff could be great. And there's a link there to listen to this article. I could play that and go make myself a cuppa, couldn't I? But I'm not going to. By the way, all the links are in the description below, and don't forget to like and subscribe, share the videos, and all that cool stuff, because it'll help. My subscriptions are slowly going up. I haven't reached 100 yet, but, we're getting there. We're getting there. Right. Lately, there has been a lot of interest in unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, or what used to be called UFOs, or what's still called UFOs. Most people still say UFOs. No matter how much you're going to try and change it to UAP, in the media, the general public is still going to say UFOs. Because it's been that for, 70 years or more. Now, the fascination has not been limited to the general public. It is increasingly spreading among scientists as well. Reports of mysterious objects in the sky are nothing new, of course. They have been occurring since ancient times, and there's a link. Where does that go to? Don't know. But traditionally, most scientists have not taken the subject seriously. Why is that? Time to stop giggling. One reason is that more than 90% of observations can be easily explained. Even those that cannot are usually based on eyewitness accounts, and it is well known that our perceptions are easily fooled. Compounding the problem is that UAP observations are nearly impossible to replicate. You cannot take a sighting, stick it in a lab, and replicate the observations. This is true no matter how many people observe the phenomenon. That's the same with all transitory events, isn't it? Or what would be called supernatural events. So if you see like a ghost, you can't replicate a ghost in a lab, can you? Although they did try it in I forgot the name of it now, where they created a ghost, didn't they? What do they call it now? That some experiment, I forgot. But I'm going off topic. And obviously, Nigel Neal did science and ghosts in the stone tape, didn't he? And his stone tape theory, but he made up out of his own brain, became how do I put it? Became accepted and often touted by ghost researchers and investigators. But as I said, I'm going off topic now. This is UFOs. Sorry, UAP. Where were we? But yeah, you can't replicate it in a lab, can you? Because it's an observed thing. Same with the Loch Ness monster, and any transitory event that somebody might see, you can't recreate it. no, not without a body. It's, where's the body? That's the legal term, isn't it? Anyway, add to this the giggle factor surrounding this topic. For scientists, the stigma connected with such research can have serious consequences for your career. The unfortunate result is that observations without easy explanations typically remain unexplained. Well, yeah, same on the news. They always put the X-Files theme on, don't they, when they're doing UFO reports. And, giggling about it, they'll say, little green men have been seen. And, you think, oh, for God's sake. But speaking of scientists, of serious consequences for your career, we did that story a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, with that scientist whose name I forgot, because you know what I'm like with names. But he did that interview with 7 News, the Australian 7 News, didn't he? That Nobel nominated scientist who's, who is a UFO experiencer. So there you go. The situation may be changing, however, following up on its 2021 report about UAPs. The Pentagon has created a new all-domain anomaly resolution office. So that what that be? Arrow. Oh, yes, I said this, didn't I? It's Arrow. Pew! With the objective to synchronise efforts across the Department of Defence and with other US federal departments and agencies to detect, identify and attribute objects of interest in, on or near military installations, operating areas, training areas, special use airspace and other areas of interest, and as necessary to mitigate any associated threats to safety of operations and national security. This includes anomalous unidentified space, airborne, submerged and transmedium objects. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? But it's a government report, isn't it? They're always mouthfuls, aren't they? But that'd be interesting, thinking of the news last week where we've had all these, report, that Ukrainian government report or scientific report, that a lot of UFOs have been seen over Kiev during the war, and that they don't think are, drones or missiles or whatever. They're unexplained. So that'd fall into this category, wouldn't it? Right, NASA also is weighing in. The agency's own study of UAP is due to get underway this fall or autumn. This is not the first time government agencies have tried to get to the bottom of what's going on with UFOs. Probably the most famous of these studies is Project Blue Book, conducted in the 1950s and 1960s. Yeah, and well, NASA's study was it $100,000 and like a handful of people. It's not going to amount to anything, is it? I'll just have a sip of coffee in my Mercury Rapids mug, available on Amazon. If you want to have a read, it's available on Amazon. Oh, and Kindle. It's paperback or Kindle. While we're at it, sod it. Where have I got it? It's here, look. It's here. Right. Speaking of Mercury Rapids, there you go. Big, thick book, look. 3 volumes in one, because I originally wrote a trilogy. And speaking of UFOs, it's all about UFOs in a light-hearted action adventure. Bill Lewis, abducted by extraterrestrials, he was a non-believer, and then he gets embroiled in government conspiracies and alien invasions. Oh, there you go. Buy it. You might like it, or you might not. That's up to you. Right, where were we? Methodical approaches to UAP. But these official projects are not what's changing minds today. The greatest change is that we are finally able to start applying the scientific method to UAP. This becomes clear in the Pentagon report. Most of the UAP reported probably do represent physical objects, given that a majority of UAP were registered across multiple sensors to include radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and visual observation. While eyewitness reports can easily be dismissed as optical illusions, it is... Sorry, I was distracted then. I was just continuing. I've got Ancient Aliens playing on the History Channel. I think it's Ancient Aliens. It's what we're on before, anyway. It might have moved on now. But I think it's Ancient Aliens still we're looking at. Because I love it. I know it's rubbish, but I love it. Anyway, where were we? And visual observation. Sorry, I get distracted easily. While eyewitness reports can easily be dismissed as optical illusions, it is harder to explain why something observed using different methods and covering different parts of the spectrum. A case in point is a paper recently posted on a scientific server. Oh, there we go, that's what I was talking about earlier. By 3 scientists from the main astronomical observatory of the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine. For their study, Boris Zelayev and colleagues used 2 observation stations, one in Kiev. I'm not going to say Kiev, it's Kiev to me. And the other 120 kilometres away. Colour video cameras recorded objects moving across the daytime sky at high speed, with exposure time set to just 1 millisecond and the frame rate set to no slower than 50 frames per second. The cameras did record several hits. Some of the objects were luminous, while other very dark objects registered 0 albedo, meaning they reflected no sunlight. What all of the objects shared in common, though, was that they were moving at extremely high velocities, up to 282 kilometres per second. Compare that with the Earth's escape velocity of 11.2 kilometres per second, which is the speed required to overcome our planet's gravity and escape into space. No physical human-engineered object could get close to such velocities within the Earth's atmosphere. Yet based on colorimetric methods, if you want to know what that means, click that link, because I have no idea. Anyway, yet based on colorimetric methods, the scientists determined that the observed objects were only a few miles above our planet's surface. Interestingly, the data showed that the object's brightness was correlated with their speed. That might lead us to speculate whether these objects are extraterrestrial spacecraft using some unknown propulsion system. Here again, science provides at least some help. Based on papers such as one published in 2010 by Harold Putoff from the Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin in Texas, we can theorize that the signatures of exotic propulsion systems might be. What the signatures of exotic propulsion systems might be. If a ship had a kind of warp drive capable of modifying the space-time continuum, nearby observers might see a blue shift towards higher frequencies of light, observe time running faster, and feel the presence of anti-gravitational forces. No doubt we should be extremely careful with such speculation. Could the observations from Ukraine simply be the result of instrument malfunctions? Can we really be sure they represent physical objects in motion? The measurements seem consistent with each other, and one UAP was observed by both telescopes. But the authors still do not put these questions entirely to rest. So the answer for now is that no, we cannot be sure. Sorry, I was just told to get distracted easily. That was just hanging in my brain. One UAP was observed by both telescopes. Remember, they were 120 kilometres apart. But anyway, so it must have been high up for both of them to see it. Possibly even outside, probably even outside the atmosphere. Anyway, but even if the observations turn out to be an artifact of the instruments themselves, that information would be useful. Crossing new frontiers. Nearly done. Other exciting recent developments in this field are the Galileo Project, led by Harvard professor Avi Loeb, and the work of Kevin Nuth from the University of Albany and colleagues, who have investigated a much publicised UAP observed by the Nimitz aircraft carrier group in 2004. Gary Nolan and his team have used novel technologies to gain further insights into residues associated with UAP observations, such as the well-known Council Bluffs sightings over a town in Iowa in 1977. As I said, there's links if you want to go and research these sightings. So where does this leave us 75 years after the famous UFO sightings in Roswell, New Mexico? Today, as then, the vast majority of UAP observations can easily be explained, but a small portion cannot, and this means that over time we have accumulated a list of sightings that are still genuinely puzzling. The good news is that technology has advanced to such a degree that we do not have to just stop there. We should begin by getting rid of the stigma associated with UAP research. Let science do its work. I don't know what we will find. We might at least discover some previously unknown natural phenomena similar to sprites and elves. That's an atmospheric phenomenon. But the payoff could be much greater. Solid evidence that we are not alone in the universe. So there you go. That's a really good article, that by Dirk Schultz-McCutch. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. But good article, Dirk. Great name. So science should take UFOs more seriously. And it seems to be doing now. Are we in an age of disclosure? I don't know yet. But we're getting there. We're getting there, I think. It's the old drip, innit? The drip of information. And we're slowly being acclimatised to the fact that UFOs are a genuine phenomenon. And soon, it's essentially there now, innit? But soon it'll just be, universally regarded, forgive the pun, as, something that's real. Even if we can't explain it properly. Right, this one, the Mail Online. Startling eyewitness accounts resurface of Australian UFO incident in a major town in 1994. It looked like it was floating on water. Right. A TikTok video has reopened one of Australia's most intriguing X-Files. See, they've got to use that, haven't they? By sharing remarkable eyewitness accounts of a UFO sighted above Gosford almost 3 decades ago. Not to be mistaken for Cosford, which were another UFO sighting in Britain, but this is in Australia. So many people from all walks of life reported seeing a metallic sphere-like object in the New South Wales Central Coast region on or around New Year's Eve that made national headlines. The so-called 1994 Gosford UFO incident has intrigued UFO enthusiasts ever since, and the TikTok video posted by the account UFO Legacy provides vivid evidence why. And here's a clip from it. Shall we just watch a clip?
Not believing my eyes, because where I sit, I can see the open water. And I just couldn't believe that this thing could appear on the water. It was some kind of craft, but it was completely surrounded in lights underneath and all around, and it just looked like a carousel. It wasn't anything flat.
All people that I spoke to had exactly the same thing to say. There was no variance whatsoever in the object that was sighted. It was a huge chrome, very shiny object in the shape of a ball. At the bottom of the ball was a number of huge white lights.
Not believing.
Oops, nearly started it again. So there you go. There's a link somewhere. I saw it. There's a link to watch the full video. And there's a still. In the video, made in 1996, housewife June O'Hare describes looking out of the glass doors of her house when something incredible loomed into view. Where I sit, I can see the open water, and I just couldn't believe that this thing could appear on the water, she said. It was some kind of craft, but it was completely surrounded by lights underneath and all around. It just looked like a carousel. It wasn't anything flat. I was just bewildered. How something could appear and disappear into thin air practically. Retiree Margaret Howe saw from her house window that what she described as a cylinder hovering over the lake. The top of the water all lit up, and as that light was up, I could hear the rushing of water, the movement of water, and the water being raised up, and shortly after, down comes the water on top of the lake, she said. So that's interesting, isn't it, that it were bringing water up and letting it back down again. For whatever reason, but we've heard that before. Anyway, I'm not young, and people might think I'm a bit strange at seeing things, or had an imagination. I've got an imagination, but not like that. Not when I see something that I know I saw it. Gosford Police at the time said they had dozens of calls on New Year's Eve reporting very similar occurrences. After this was reported in the local newspaper, more accounts emerged. All the people that I spoke to had exactly the same thing to say. There was no variance whatsoever in the object that was sighted, Sergeant Bob Wenning said. It was a huge chrome, very shiny object in the shape of a ball. At the bottom of the ball was a number of huge white lights. This object looked like it was sucking up water. Former air traffic controller Lindsay Carter claimed he spotted something while on the Pacific Highway on the way from Sydney to Gosford. I was just gazing out of the front window of the car, and I saw approximately half a kilometre away a bright silver metallic object crossing from south to north, he said. When you see something like this, there is a sure knowledge that you are looking at something that is beyond your experience. Adrian Bale, who the video identifies as a student, had an elevated view from a coastal lookout vantage point. We were watching a bright light move in a strange fashion that you'll never see or we'd never saw anyway, he said. It was moving quickly and moved, for instance, in a zigzag fashion. We were watching it for 10 to 15 minutes, watching it move in this direction north, and we just saw this bright light 15 to 20 metres above our car. The bright light, the emanating light towards our car. Mate, it was just awesome. See, that's Australia, isn't it? Mate, it was just awesome. Businessman Rick Dowes said he noticed a bright light coming from the right of his car. It seemed to be following us for quite a while, and then all of a sudden it turned at a right angle, right across the expressway in front of the car, he said. It was large, round, and seemed to have a stream of sparks flying out the back of it. I don't know what it was, but it was most peculiar. So sparks could have been, water. If it's come from the water, it could have been water flying off it, couldn't it, catching the light, rather than sparks. Because when you say sparks, it makes it sound like a Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon rocket ship, doesn't it? But obviously it's not that sort of thing. I first thought maybe it was some type of meteorite, but it was too large. It was travelling too slow and turned a right angle, which meteorites aren't inclined to do. In the comments under the video, there were even more true believers confirming accounts. I saw this as a 15-year-old. I can confirm it went from south to north from my view at Umina. Apologies, I don't know. Umina, I don't know. One TikTok user wrote, I was only young at the time, but my family watched this as we had a view of Woy Woy Bay. Great names in Australia, aren't they? My mum and I had dreams that came true ever since then, another said. Some, however, were more sceptical, and there's the ubiquitous X-Files picture. I always thought there was something different in the water on the coast, one wrote. For others, it was the 90s fashion choices that were out of this world. It's the guy in glasses and grey jumper, old mate from Curiosity Show, one wrote. I've no idea what they're talking about. Coincidentally or not, 1994 was perhaps the peak period of peak popularity. Sorry, what's the word? Alliterating there, aren't I? Period of peak popularity for paranormal pop culture sensation. The X-Files. A US TV drama about a massive government conspiracy to keep real encounters with aliens a secret. And that's it. That's your lot. And there's some comments, but we won't read them. You can read them at your leisure. So there you go. That's obviously I've heard of the Gosford incident, but not for a long time. I would have to research it once more. So that's very interesting. Right. So next story. There we go. This is from the Debrief. So this is a political story. Here comes the October surprise is the title. 2022 may be poised to have the greatest political October surprise in the history of United States elections. That's right, unidentified flying objects dumped smack into the middle of a national midterm election. UFOs as a political issue. Candidates were questioned about where they stand on the issue. It sounds crazy. It's not going to happen, right? Right? In US politics, an October surprise is a news event that may influence the outcome of an upcoming November election, whether deliberately planned or spontaneously occurring, because the date for national elections is in early November. Events that take place in October have greater potential to influence the decisions of prospective voters. Thus, relatively last-minute news stories could either change the course of an election or reinforce the inevitable. What we already know. The preliminary report on unidentified aerial phenomena was released on June 25th, 2021. Sorry, I'm struggling with words today. I don't know why. Well, I always do, don't I? This might not qualify as a big deal except for the fact that when Congress passed the legislation demanding a 180-day turnaround for a report on UAP from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence late in 2020, the date for the clock to start was the date that President Trump signed it. Sorry, I'm looking at Ancient Aliens again. But there's nothing happening. On that day, I got out a calendar, counted out 180 days by hand, and arrived at the magic date, June 25th, the last possible day to release it and still be in full compliance with the wishes of Congress and the President. My takeaway is pretty simple. Director Avril Haines and her team over at ODNI will follow the law to the letter, and they will not release a report until the very last minute it is called for. They will serve no UAP report before it's time. So when was that? That was 2021. Yes, that's when it was released. Yeah, sorry. Right, logic of the 2022 calendar. The legislation on last year's NDAA, or National Defence Authorisation Act, passed both the House and Senate and then was signed by President Biden at the beginning of 2022. It's the law. The NDAA contained a lengthy amendment from Senators Kirsten Gillibrand and Marco Rubio. It called for all kinds of juicy new plans for UAP investigation, from annual classified and public reports to funding for investigations to a new office investigators to a new office to a demand for answers across the board about who makes UAPs, why they cause health effects, and whether or not we have any of them in our possession. I know what you're thinking. Oh my. Most notably, however, the NDAA Gillibrand-Rubio amendment set a deadline for that first annual report. This time it doesn't matter when Biden signed it, the deadline is the same. The next momentous congressionally mandated UAP report is due on Halloween this year, October 31st, 2022. I haven't got a spooky sound effect, never mind. It could happen before, but the even money has to be on exactly that date based on the ODNI's previous behaviour. No matter who is writing this one, or UAP reports to come, they will tend to take all the time they can get, like a sophomore cramming for a midterm. This year's midterm elections are of huge importance, since all members of the House of Representatives are up for election, and 1/3 of the members of the Senate, plus a majority of the nation's governors. Given the tie in the Senate between Democrats and Republicans, and the razor-thin edge for the Democrats in the House, it's fair to say that in some respects the fate of the nation hangs in the balance that day. The news is full of motivating stories to get voters to the polls. Election Day in the United States is statutorily set by the federal government as the Tuesday next after the first Monday in the month of November, equaling the Tuesday occurring within the dates of November 2nd to November 8th. Our next midterm election will be held on Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. I've gotten my trusty calendar out and done my hand count again. The math is simple and compelling. The next National UAP report, produced by the Department of Defence and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, will likely come out exactly 8 days before the midterm elections. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I submit to you that if there's going to be an October surprise that affects the 2022 elections, this could be it. The final days of the 2022 campaign. With the public battered by everything from the raid... Oh, God, I'm spitting. From the raid on Mar-a-Lago, that was one of Trump's houses, wasn't it? To the repeal of Roe, plus coronavirus. The Roe is the thing about a woman's right to have an abortion, isn't it? That's what that is. Plus coronavirus, droughts, floods, fires, inflation, a ruptured supply chain, January 6th and God knows what else. You might argue that adding UAP to the menu is just a bit much. That might be true, but one party's outrage might be another's Hail Mary. It is true that the June 25th report, released on a Friday afternoon, got some weekend coverage. Oh, pardon me. I do apologise, but was off the news radar by Monday. Still, it would be misleading to say that the public news angle was the only impact it had. The reality is that the report, particularly that classified version that none of us average citizens got to see, really shook up a lot of people in Congress. It's what got Gillibrand to write up her amendment. It got others like Marco Rubio and Mitt Romney to start talking about all this in public language that held open the possibility that they may not be, well, of this earth. It got the same response from NASA's new administrator, Bill Nelson. Even Avril Haines, whose office put it out, was talking more openly in the aftermath. Plus, last year saw former CIA chiefs taking to the airwaves and talking about what a vast universe we live in, one where anything is possible. So already the world of October 31st, 2022 is further along in this subject than the world of June 25th, 2021. That's how fast these things are moving these days. The point is that the next report will have to build on what came before it. It will also be written at a time when the authors know damn well that if they try to obfuscate and dissemble, that there will be pushback from Capitol Hill. Remember that Senators Gillibrand, Rubio and Romney, just for starters, have all run for president before. Gillibrand and Rubio in particular are as ambitious today as they ever were. Clearly they do not think that talking about UAP or introducing legislation is going to derail those ambitions. They'll be standing before the cameras at CNN and Fox and everyone else faster than you can say tic-tac. See what you did there. The body politic may be both shaken and stirred, and most definitely spilled all over our nice party clothes by this next report. This time, depending on what it says and how it says it, cable news could blow up with scientists, celebrity abductees, whistleblowers, witnesses, pilots, and God knows who else, all trying to expand on what the report has suggested and to pitch their expertise to talk about whether it is true and what is being done about it. They don't mention researchers, do they? They just say scientists, celebrity abductees, whistleblowers, witnesses, pilots, and God knows who else. Researchers. Where were we? What done about it? A few things are certain. Those final days of the campaign are going to be run at a fever pitch. Town meetings, in person or on Zoom, are going to be happening by the thousands across America. At least a few voters are going to get through the screeners used by candidates and networks to prevent real questions from sneaking in and ask their elected representatives and the wannabes who covet their jobs to go on the record. Political dynamics being what they are, one party is apt to be in a better position than the other, providing incentive for the one that's down to try to shatter that narrative. The dynamic of UAP reality and its ability to shake everything up will appeal to somebody. I thought we'd done them, but we haven't. A national security election. It's easy to see that one way to look at the UAP issue is to treat it as a national security issue. Well, it is, isn't it? Sort of, because if the unknown aircraft, quotes aircraft, quotes, penetrating American airspace, willy-nilly, then it's a national security issue, isn't it? This stance allows candidates to say that they don't know who's behind these UAPs, but we better be ready for them, whoever they are. Already the on-the-record politicians talk like they'd rather UAP be extraterrestrial in nature, because if it's from Russia or China, we're in one heap of trouble. Gillibrand, Rubio and Romney have all made this case. It's true, isn't it? Because you can just say, oh, they're aliens, so, there's nothing we can do about it. But if it's Russians or China, or, North Korea or whatever, then they've got to do something about it, haven't they? Right, other candidates may try to soft-pedal their views, but even those will have to hew to Ronald Reagan's maxim, trust but verify. In the end, in the shadow of semi-disclosure, that's a good thing, at least one of the political parties will be asking, whose finger do you want on the button if there are ETs buzzing our aircraft carriers and missile silos? In fact, it's such a good argument that both may try to use it at the same time. See, they've done the research talking about missile silos because of that famous case, that missile silo in Montana. Not in Montana. See, I don't even know, but I know what I'm talking about. Who knows how that cuts? Biden is going to have a policy of some kind. Is going to have a policy of some kind, or else he is going to be painted as a dangerous pacifist. The Biden campaign will be talking about keeping an open mind until we have more facts. And if there was ever a topic made for a history-altering gaffe, it would have to be this one. It's Joe Biden, isn't it? It's like gaffes are his raison d'etre. At some point, Joe will probably go philosophical and say something memorable for the history books. He'll just go, UFOs, UAP, come on, man. That's all he'll say, won't it? Because that's all he says. And the reliably unreliable Donald Trump won't be able to avoid the microphones, and he'll tell us how he can be very, very strong, the strongest president in all of history, he's been told. I've not much time for Donald Trump, or Joe Biden, or any politician. But Donald Trump does me head in. Not as a politician, just as a person. Anyway, even a small bit of disclosure of UFO reality is such a disruptive act that it may be catnip for Trump. He can shoot off his mouth with no consequence, not currently being in the White House, allowing him to be front stage centre through it all. As we approach election day, he may be looking for a distraction event. Pardon me. In 1976 and 1980, both major party presidential candidates, Ford, wanted hearings of both Carter and Reagan have had UFO sightings, had UFO connections, but remarkably, the issue never really came up in reporters' questions or in the many debates. 2022 could easily be different. A political circus. Admittedly, this is not likely to be anyone's first choice for how the world should handle such an important issue as learning that we are not alone, but we are, after all, only human. Chaos and mess are kind of our thing, always have been, and there's no reason to believe the situation will be any different next year. That means 20 noises again. I did this last night, and I was doing me Appointment with Fear video last night, live. Loads of noises from behind. I just heard one now. I'm alone in the house. Well, alone downstairs. My son's upstairs in his room playing his games. But anyway, I tell you, sure, the ghosts are becoming active again, and it's the middle of the day. Where were we? That means 2022 is primed and ready to go down in history books as the first national election where UFOs were visibly on the ballot in at least a few races and just maybe across the board. A prediction. The report is due on Monday, October 31st. Watch for it to come out on Friday afternoon, October 28th. The weekend will be eclipsed by Halloween parties, and that gives the report the greatest chance to go in under the radar, playing itself out. No one in the know wants to see it released on a Monday, an action that will just keep it in the news for 5 days straight. Look for the next UAP report to not only have a few surprises in it, but block out some time for that Friday night, the 28th. Pour yourself a weekend drink, settle into your reading chair, and bear witness as the next phase gets underway. You heard it here first. Oh, this is from Bryce Zabel, co-host the podcast Need to Know with Coulthard and Zabel, a concise analysis of news research at UFO issues. Bryce Zabel, co-creator of the excellent UFO adventure series Dark Skies, which lasted for just one season, and it's criminal that it never got a second season. But there you go. So that's very interesting. So politics and UFOs, it's a thing. It always has been a thing, but it's becoming a thing again. Right. Next up, Grimsby podcast host claims the town is rife with supernatural ongoings after seeing UFO in park. He first set up the Bizarre Tales podcast back in 2016 with his friend Dan. And there they are. Lee Solway, 38, and Dan Gamblin, 31, recording their Bizarre Tales podcast. And they've got a tinier table than I've got, I'm telling you. And probably better equipment. I ain't got one of those setups there. I've got a little thingy. Can you see? Hang on, I'll point my camera down there. Can you? I've got a little mixing thing desk here that I only use for sound effects. So we pick one at random. There you go. Hey. Where are we? Right. But I ain't got one of them. And they've got the snazzy connectors. No USB there. It's the... Don't ask me what they're called. But my microphone's got one of those connectors. But I can't afford them. Anyway, a man from Grimsby. Where is Grimsby now? Is it in East Yorkshire? Or is it... it's not Humberside anymore, is it? It's not... There used to be Humberside, which was East Yorkshire and North Lincolnshire. But now it's just East Yorkshire now, and North Lincolnshire's just part of Lincolnshire. Anyway, whatever. A man from Grimsby who set up his own podcast about supernatural happenings has claimed the town is rife with accounts of supernatural events. Well, any town is. Lee Solway, 38, set up the Bizarre Tales podcast with his friend Dan Gamblin, 31, back in 2016. As part of the series, the two delve into strange stories from around the world, including tales of hauntings, mysteries, and extraterrestrial sightings. Mr. Solway told Grimsby Live that his interest in these kind of stories didn't just come out of nowhere, but was spurred on by his own personal experiences from over the years. He said Grimsby is rife with excellent supernatural accounts, and he's been at the centre of a few of those, or these. Lee said one memorable experience was when he was sat in Ainsley Street Park as a teenager, when he was sitting. Who wrote this? He sat down, but you are sitting, and he was sitting in Ainsley... Sorry, I'm getting anal. If you know what I mean... when he was sitting in Ainsley Street Park as a teenager with his brother Paul, sorry, I'm going to be giggling now, and one of his friends, when suddenly their attention turned to a rather large object in the sky. Typically, the moon is about the size of a 2p coin when looking at it. This thing was at least the size of a penny at arm's length, he said. If you really focused on it, you could see it was moving ever so slightly. You wouldn't be able to notice if you weren't completely fixated on it. It felt as if it was reading our minds to the point where it shot over to us and hovered above our heads. I've heard that before in other reports. Lee described the UFO as two panels circling in the figure of 8, also giving off static noise. At one point, he recalls his friend shouting over to a man who was walking by with his dog, asking him if he also saw the large objects floating above their heads, at which point the dog walker looked up and instantly ran in fear. Is that Lee? Yeah, that's Lee there, look. With his Grimbarian t-shirt on. Is that what they call somebody from Grimsby, a Grimbarian? The trio then followed suit and ran straight for home, Lee said. Arguably the strangest part of this experience for Lee was that he didn't remember it until years after. I was watching a programme on television and a woman from Wales started describing exactly the same thing we saw all those years back. I want Sasha, or it? It was like a hidden memory had been unlocked suddenly, the 38-year-old added. I called up my brother and asked him to come round to mine so I could ask him about it. I didn't tell him anything before he arrived, but afterwards we both started remembering remembering different little bits of that night, and we started to piece the whole thing together. This wasn't Lee's only experience with the supernatural, as later on in his life, at the age of 23, he had a brief encounter with a shadow-like figure. While stopping at a friend's house, he decided to go upstairs to bed as it was getting late. Another spooky thing. Last night, in my appointment with Fear, I recounted the tale of as a kid when I saw a shadow-like figure in my bedroom. Anyway, all the lights were off as Lee's friend's children were already fast asleep, and whilst... I hate that word. I hate the word whilst. And whilst heading to bed, hey nonny nonny, the two spotted the outline of a man at the top of the stairs. As they slowly walked up, the dark figure began to walk backwards, leading to the friend to scream out in terror. Just say while instead of whilst. Say while heading to bed. In that moment, the shadow man lunged forward down the steps and headed straight to the door. My friend was screaming because she thought it was a burglar, and so I was left chasing after it, continued Lee. The figure left no trace and was never seen again. Spooky. To hear more spooky stories of the unknown, you can stream Lee and Dan's Bizarre Tales podcast online on Spotify via the link here, so follow that link. If you would like to share your own experience, you can get in touch with the duo via their email, supernaturalpod@gmail.com. And there we go. Oh, very interesting. So I will look up that. Actually, I'll open that in a new window. Oh, it's on Spotify, isn't it? I'm not a member of Spotify. Anyway, so I'll leave that there. I might be able to listen to that without joining. So there you go. So follow that podcast. I'm sure it's very interesting. There they are, look. Lee and Dan. Right, next up, Prince Philip, the late Prince Philip, who wants to be reincarnated, or he said he wants to be reincarnated as a deadly virus to reduce overpopulation. Anyway, but we're talking about UFOs. The Queen's death could trigger the release of the Royal X-Files. Alien buffs say ministers must make public her late husband, the Duke of Edinburgh's near 70-year research into UFO sightings in Britain. He was obsessed with space and developed a fascination for aliens after a bricklayer reported a close encounter at the home of Lord Louis Mountbatten, Philip's uncle, in 1955. Fred Briggs claimed he was knocked off his bike by a mystery force as he saw a figure emerge from a spacecraft. That's Lord Louis Mountbatten. Was murdered by the IRA. They blew his boat up. The late Lord Mountbatten, the UK's former Chief of Defence Staff, told Philip about the incident at his Broadlands estate in Hampshire. The royal spent much of the rest of his life probing ETs, but experts claim it was hushed up as it would have caused a sensation. Now they say there are almost certain to be calls to open up the files. Ex-Ministry of Defence official Nick Pope, who manned the government's UFO desk from 1991 to 1994. With help, they weren't just him, and didn't really man it. And it wasn't really a UFO desk, but that's what we're hearing anyway. Anyway, whatever. Said Philip and his ex-RAF associate Sir Peter Horsley quietly investigated alien sightings over the years. He was basically a government official who undertook investigations into UFOs, but more on his own time than on the government's thing. But he won't admit that. I think that's the impression I've got anyway. He said the royal kept an eye on developments, subscribed to UFO magazines and newsletters. I wonder if he got UFO data. And newsletters, and had witnesses interviewed. This is highly sensitive, he added. Here you have the Queen's husband investigating UFOs. Had the news got out, it would have caused a sensation. Nick told US-based History TV Philip's interest was sparked by the incident on his uncle's land. He said Briggs claimed he saw a huge ship before a humanoid figure emerged and he was knocked from his bike. Briggs reported the encounter to Lord Mountbatten, who ordered him to make a witness statement and wrote up his account of the incident above. Historian... Historians have a drink of water. I'm on water now, by the way. My coffee's gone, because you won't know, but in the middle of recording this, my brother arrived. My brother and my nephew arrived, so I had to pause. So a bit of nifty editing, and nobody'd know. Until now, because I'm telling you. Hey, where were we? Historian Richard Dolan. Oh, I really like Richard Dolan, I must admit, and I like listening to him talk. Look up his YouTube channel. Said Lord Mountbatten talked extensively to Prince Philip about this, adding, "You have to assume Queen Elizabeth knew." Investigative journalist Linda Moulton Howe said Philip, assisted by his uncle, could have compiled research containing almost everything the UK government knew about UFOs, dating back 7 decades. I like Linda Moulton Howe as well. His files stayed secret following his death, aged 99 in April 2021. 2 months later, Brit Defence Chiefs refused to release extraterrestrial info. Baroness Annabel Goldie was asked if the UK government would reveal details of its X-Files like the Americans. She said the MOD, Ministry of Defence, holds no reports on unidentified aerial phenomena. Yeah, right. Of course they don't. Oh, that's it, right. Oh, hang on. Got a couple of comments. No point, it's already out in the public. He won't have anything that MOD didn't already release. It's probably true. And somebody says, what an idiot. Who's an idiot? I don't know, but the public, Me public. So it's very interesting. I'm sure... as I said, I don't think he'll know anything that the government doesn't already know. He might know more than the average Joe in the street. But it'd be interesting if they did release some his notes and his files. It'd be interesting. But I think it'd just be, it'd just be his own research, wouldn't it? I think that's what it'd be. Or maybe research his commission, had other people investigating for him. But I don't think it'd be anything, probably not a lot that we don't already know. But hopefully that'll get released. Right, UFOs. See, another one about UFOs in politics, how the Canadian government plans to handle questions about UFOs. The Canadian government has a plan if questions about unidentified flying objects are raised in Parliament. Transport Minister Omar Alghabra, apologies if I'm saying that wrong, would lead the response to UFO-related questions in the House of Commons. They've got a House of Commons in Canada, of course, not just the UK. According to documents obtained by ctvnews.ca, acquired through an access to information request, the documents also include UFO talking points prepared for the Minister's office and emails about a May 11th UFO briefing attended by his staff. You know, it's saying UFOs, not UAPs. It's very interesting. Good old Canada, eh? Oh, but they do mention it in a minute. Right, the Minister's office has requested a brief on unidentified aerial phenomena. UFOs. Specifically, Transport Canada's role and additional pertinent information, reads a May 6th email to Transport Canada's Safety and Security Group. Earlier that morning, ctvnews.ca published an article on the UFO briefing former Canadian Defence Minister Harjit Sajjan received nearly a year prior, in May 2021. That briefing came in advance of a US intelligence report on military sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, which was made public in June 2021. Additional emails from May the 6th reveal quick coordination between staff in the Defence and Transport Minister's offices who discussed and agreed that the Transport Minister would take any questions that could be raised in-house on this matter. A Transport Canada email from the afternoon explained, referring to the House of Commons. Oh, pardon me. To support Ministers' prep on this issue, please provide a parliamentary information card on this topic by noon Tuesday, May the 10th. The email continued. I wonder if I burp a lot when I'm doing these. It's because I'm breathing in, to read out loud. And so I'm breathing in too much. So I'm getting gas. It's an excuse. Other internal emails show how Transport Canada, and it's also off topic. Other internal emails show how Transport Canada staff worked through the weekend to create the parliamentary information card, which consisted of 3 pages of talking points and background information on how Canada's Federal Transportation Department receives UFO reports, which are then published in an online aviation incident database. How long does this go on for? Known as CADORS, CADORS, the Civilian Aviation Daily Occurrence Reporting System database, is peppered with nearly 3 decades of strange Canadian sightings from civilians, soldiers, police officers, air traffic controllers, as well as pilots on military, medical cargo and passenger flights operated by WestJet, Air Canada Express, Porter Airlines, Delta and more. One report from July 2021 describes a Canadian military transport plane and a KLM Royal Dutch Airlines passenger flight that both reported seeing a bright green object flying to the clouds and then disappear. Cool. Over the Gulf of St. Lawrence. The Canadians thought it was flying while the KLM crew thought it was space debris. That's interesting. So it must have been going down then, mustn't it? If it was space debris, it'd be falling from space to the ground. So I don't know. Anyway, right. Although further investigation into UAP sightings falls outside of Transport Canada's mandate, Transport Canada, is open to continued collaboration with other departments and committed to the safety and security of Canada's aviation industry. One of the suggested responses / key messages in the parliamentary information card states. In the event of questions in the House of Commons, the Parliamentary Information Card also included a section labelled "If Pressed." That means, if somebody, belabours the point. Recent media articles report minimal government funding in Canada. They say government then, government funding in Canada on UAP research compared to the US, and a collaborative approach to standardising the collection of data across federal agencies is suggested, the section's final point reads. Well, every country in the world's research is small compared to the US. The US just throws money at stuff, doesn't it? Obtained through an access to information request, the below emails and 3-page parliamentary information cards show how Transport Canada staff prepared for potential questions about UFOs in Parliament. CTVnews.ca has redacted email addresses and phone numbers for privacy. Click here for a full screen view of the documents. Right, so there we go. Oh, so there you go. So there's if you want to look at the full documents, click there. But here they are. Look, some unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, suggested responses, key messages. So you can have a look at that, can't you? Right, so let's carry on the article. In the US, because they'll probably, give us bullet points here. In the US, both the Pentagon and NASA are currently studying unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, their preferred term for what are more commonly known as unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. Because they don't refer to them as objects, do they? In case they turn out not to be objects, but something, more ethereal. So they call them phenomena instead of objects. An object implies a solid thing, doesn't it? The Pentagon appears to have been engaged with the subject almost continuously since 2007. We know that our service members have encountered unidentified aerial phenomena. Ronald Moultrie, apologies if I mispronounced that, the American intelligence official who oversees the Pentagon's current UFO research office, told US lawmakers on May 17th, during the first congressional hearing on UFOs in more than 50 years. We're open to any conclusions that we may encounter. For its part, the Canadian Armed Forces states that it does not typically investigate sightings of unknown or unexplained phenomena outside the context of investigating credible threats, potential or potential distress in the case of search and rescue. Transport Canada also cautions that reports in its aviation incident database contain preliminary, unconfirmed data which can be subject to change. In a statement to CTVnews.ca, a Transport Canada spokesperson confirmed that the UAP briefing occurred on May the 11th and was attended by staff from the Transport Minister's office. The Government of Canada takes UAP reports seriously because they can present a real threat to aviation safety, such as an unidentified drone or rogue balloon. The spokesperson said via email, we should always consider a rogue balloon. We should always consider how we can improve the safety network, including taking in reporting from other department sources. Sorry, just that phrase, a rogue balloon, just fascinates me for some reason. In a previous media statement, a Transport Canada spokesperson said reports of unidentified objects can rarely be followed up on as they are, as the title implies, unidentified. We need streamlined approach to UFO reports, Transport Critic. Are we nearly done? Yeah, right. Representing Thornhill, Ontario. There's a place called Thornhill in my town where I live. Not like a mile and a half away from where I'm sitting. In that direction. Or is it that direction? Whatever. Representing Thornhill, Ontario, Member of Parliament Melissa Lantsman is the opposition's transport critic and one of two new deputy leaders of the Conservative Party. Lantsman says Canada should be working with the US and following their lead on UAP without an automatic dismissive response. Rather than ridicule and silence, it would be wise to look at this issue with the objective of identifying the origins and intent of these UAP, Lantsman wrote in an email to CTVnews.ca. We believe the government should adopt a streamlined whole-of-government approach to standardise the collection of reports across numerous departments and contractors. Efforts should be undertaken to investigate and make those findings, public in a responsible manner. With a lack of official data, other Canadian MPs have also been seeking information on the topic. John Jock Williams, I bet he's a character, spent more than 2 decades flying fighter jets for the Royal Canadian Air Force and later worked as a Transport Canada flight safety officer for over a dozen years. He thinks both of his former employers should be following up on the credible UFO reports they receive, like those from fellow pilots. Even if people are actually just seeing relatively ordinary objects like drones and balloons. There is nobody in the Canadian government that's looking in sufficient depth into this, Williams, now an aviation consultant and frequent media commentator, told ctvnews.ca from Toronto. I am as mystified as anyone as to what is flying in our skies without our understanding or permission. And I think that's it. Yes, that's your lot. So there you go. So that's the Canadian government taking a mild interest in UFOs / UAP. There's a video here. What's this? Is this...
Now, trust the science became a mantra during the pandemic, but there are still no clear answers on the subject of UFOs. Today, CTV News learned that a cabinet minister got a briefing on the subject last year. CTV's Alberta Bureau Chief Bill Fortier now on what led to the sudden interest in the mysterious sightings.
In the spring of last year, interest in UFOs surged when a U.S. intelligence report was released summarizing that unidentified aerial phenomena is real. There's no proof that it's aliens, but no proof that it's not. The office of former Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan expected the report would lead to questions in Canada, according to documents obtained by CTV News. His chief of staff wrote to military officials, anticipating this, I believe it is prudent to request a full briefing for Minister Sajjan from the Canadian perspective on this issue.
It certainly bumped up what interest was here in Canada.
Chris Rutkowski is mentioned in the June 2021 briefing as Canada's preeminent ufologist. He gets about 1,000 reports of sightings each year. The briefing highlights a few. The most recent in May of 2021 in the sky near the town of Hudson Bay, Saskatchewan. A Delta Airlines pilot flying from Alaska to Minneapolis asked air traffic control about an object well above them moving right to left. A controller responded that there was no known air traffic in that area.
Air traffic control said there's nothing up there with you. So everybody was baffled by this.
In the U.S., UFO sightings are investigated, supported by government funding.
They have far more resources about this. They've got far more observers around the planet.
In Canada, the military only investigates if there's a potential threat or problem. So it basically falls on Rutkowski, a civilian.
There's things going on up there that shouldn't be there. I suspect that we should be taking a closer look at these things.
But there doesn't seem to be much interest from Ottawa. A national defense spokesperson tells CTV News neither the current minister or the prime minister have been briefed on what Canadian intelligence knows about what's out there. Bill Fortier, CTV News, Edmonton.
Now,
I did that last time, didn't I? Pardon me. So there you go. Hopefully CTV News don't slap me with a copyright strike. Right, next up. What are... Where are we? Where's the... there we go. What are those mysterious orbs of orange light glow above San Diego and Tijuana? Or is it Tijuana? I don't know. Jen Harang shared video from North County, San Diego, of 2 flashing orbs, but she said at one point there were 5. So we'll have a look at the news story first. So I've got to go back and... only go on for a minute, and then we'll read the article. Hopefully this won't affect my copyright stuff. We've got... there we go. Music. I don't think there's any... No, it's just music, so I'll have to lower it. The lights appeared sometime around 9 p.m. and seemed to be visible for about half an hour, blah, blah, blah. So there they are. They do look like flares, I must admit. Is there a plane dropping flares? But they are, strange looking. What's that flashing light beneath? Is that people taking photos of them, or is it a building? Or is it an airport? Could be. Could be. But we will... there we go. NBC7 also reached out to the Navy, but has not yet heard back. Well, you can't see that, can you? I'll just scroll down a bit. There we go. There could be flares. There could be flares. Drop from it, but why they're there? Is that it? Yeah, that's the lot. Right. I'll go away. From Tijuana, Mexico to North San Diego County, California, witnesses Monday night reported seeing mysterious orbs of orange light hovering in the sky, prompting many questions with few answers. The lights appeared sometime around 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Is that PST? Well, I don't know. and were visible for about a half hour. From what witnesses told NBC7, it was hard to tell exactly where they were located, but several witnesses reported seeing the glowing shapes hovering above the Pacific Ocean. The lights could be seen from Carlsbad, coastal and inland San Diego, and even Tijuana, Mexico. So they must have been quite a far way away and high up. Was it UFOs, military flares? The sightings had San Diegans on the internet guessing. Jen Harang shared video from North County, San Diego, of 2 flashing orbs, but she said at one point there were 5. She sat and watched the balls of light for about 20 minutes. One would fade, and then another would pop up. Super weird. They were very bright, Harang said. Kishore Shanmugam, apologies if I'm mispronouncing that, spotted the strange lights from the backyard of his Rancho Penasquitos, I don't know, home. He's lived there for nearly a decade and he's used to frequent military plane sightings, but this was something different. He'd never seen anything like that ever in my life. That's 6 minutes. If you want to watch this video, it's there, 6 minutes of it, but we can't sit for 6 minutes, can we? I'll get into trouble. It was such a bright light you cannot miss it in the sky, Shanmugam described. It was just hovering for about a good 2 minutes, and these lights were 4 big rectangles and almost like pulsating. After 2 minutes, it just disappeared. It was almost like, I wouldn't say it flew away, it just blipped. Shanmugam said it left a small streak and a glow behind. Several commentators theorised that the sighting was military-related. NBC reached out to the US Navy and the US Coast Guard to see if there were any drills Monday evening. The Coast Guard told NBC they believed the US Air Force was conducting drills in the area. But NBC has been unable to verify that with the Air Force. NBC has not yet heard back from the Navy. It's not the first time strange sightings have sent the internet searching for answers. Similar lights spotted over San Diego and Tijuana in June 2022 were reportedly flares being used for a military exercise, according to San Diego police, but the military never confirmed. And I think that might be a link to it. There, so you can look at that, can't you? Is that it? Yes, that's it. They look like flares, I must admit. But if they were seen from, San Diego and Tijuana, which, it is quite close, but it's not super close, is it? There must have been a fair way of, decent altitude, maybe. I don't know. Right. Where's that? Let's click refresh. Here we go. Right. UFO spotted over Australia. Witnesses are convinced photos from different angles can prove. The Courier Mail reported on September 21st that some people claim to have spotted a UFO on the Gold Coast over the weekend. A man visiting family on the Gold Coast over the weekend said he looked out of a skyscraper window and saw what he believed to be a UFO hovering over the Q1 building. And there's a photo of it. That looks a lot like a reflection of a light that's behind the photographer. It's reflecting in the window. That looks like a ceiling, a ceiling light. One that's what's the word? In the ceiling. It's depressed into the ceiling. That's what it looks like to me. And there's probably if it were a bigger picture, there might be one there. And if there were one, there could be one there, but maybe it's at a funny angle. Anyway. John Gordon said he was filming spectacular views of the Gold Coast from the upper floors of the Mantra building on Cavill Avenue when the mysterious object appeared. I took some pictures, and when I looked out, what looked like a flying saucer appeared above the Q1 building, Gordon said. Gordon said he didn't notice the flying saucer when he took the photo, and another photo taken by his niece confirmed seeing the bizarre sight. There's another. Oh, that's not... why is that in Chinese? I don't know. Maybe that's just on the camera. Maybe it needs... I don't know. That's just an object in the sky. It could be anything, that, couldn't it? My niece took a photo of me and my cousin in front of the same window with a black object in the background, proving it wasn't a reflection but a real UFO, Gordon said. Yeah, but why is the Chinese writing on? Chinese email address by the look of it. Anyway, when I first saw it in the photo, I believed it was a UFO, and when I saw the second photo, I was even more convinced. This isn't a Chinese website, is it? Maybe that's why that's on there. I don't know. Maybe it is. There's a close-up. As I said, I still think that's a reflection of a light, that's depressed into the ceiling, and that's it. So you can see that's the interior of the curve of the light. Obviously, we've seen it from an angle. Anyway, recently there's been a series, of similar sightings across Australia. In June, many on social media questioned the perfect string of lights in the sky, which were later discovered to be part of Elon Musk's Starlink satellite train. I'll just have to get rid of myself there because I can't scroll down any further. So I'll just disappear while I read this last bit. That same month, there were some bizarre reports of UFO sightings popping up on Bundaberg's social media, but one expert told Bundaberg Newsmail that these were more likely a series of lightning strikes during the storm. The Courier Mail has contacted UFO experts to study the photos provided by Gordon. So there you go. Yeah, it could be a Chinese site, which is why they've got that, because in the news reports to the side, there's a lot of Chinese news there, so that could be why they're there. But yeah, that could be anything, that dot there. I mean, there looks like to be 2 dots above it, but is it artifacting, or 3 dots even? Is it artifacting? I mean, there's a dot there. It could be anything. Could be anything. And I think that's a light reflecting in the wind. Yeah. Sorry, I could be wrong, but that's my thoughts. Right, last story for today. Don't worry, it's not a UFO, say police using drones at night in Milton Keynes. Why is that there? How do I get rid of that? There isn't an X to get rid of that, is there? Nope, there's a share button, but I can't get rid of that little video. Never mind. You can hardly see it anyway. Local police have assured people, it's gone now, have assured people that aliens have not descended following sightings of a strange object and a beam of light in the night skies. Yeah, but there's no videos for this, is there? No, so why are they showing this? It's all about the Queen. All about the Queen. Oh, the drone's danger to planes, which, I suppose could be right, but not about UFOs. Anyway, right. In fact, the object was a special night vision search drone. Have I missed a bit here? Oh, no, never mind. One of a fleet being used by police to help keep Milton Keynes and other parts of the Thames Valley Force area safe after dark. The Thames Valley Police Rural Crime Task Force is using the eye-in-the-sky drones to assist with capturing evidence and locating suspects, a spokesman said today. I mean, that's all we need, isn't it? Just to muddy the waters even more. And here we go. Police released a photo of the spaceship-like drone, complete with a mysterious beam of light, during one rehearsal session. So is this it, or is this something else? Because if I scroll down, you'll see why I'm suspicious. I mean, is this... It must... Yeah, this is... yeah, that's the photo, isn't it? So it's showing the drone with its beam of light, and a person in the middle of the beam who looks like a spaceman. Unbelievable. Right, the spokesman said the team recently practiced their flying skills at night utilising the searchlight. Hopefully people in the area didn't think P.S. Maris, that Police Sergeant Maris, was being abducted by aliens. Well, that's what it looks like, doesn't it? Muddying the waters. They're all part of it. It's a conspiracy. Where's my tinfoil at? I need it. Last week, the fleet of drones was used in Windsor as part of the security preparations for the Queen's funeral. The Thames Valley Police mounted section is carrying out patrols in and around the town centre, said the police spokesman. He added, another team, able to see above the crowds, is our drone unit, flying high and live streaming to pilots on the ground who are on the lookout for anything suspicious. And there's another photo showing the drone. The drone sessions at night have caused some residents to wonder if they had seen a UFO. One woman posted on social media, saw it last night, the silent big orange light. I really wondered what on earth it was, and my husband didn't believe me. Why would it be orange? It wouldn't be orange. Glad to know I haven't lost the plot. Another person had a more serious concern. Will these things be used to spy on people in the future, he wrote? Probably. Police drones can be used in a variety of incidents, such as searching for missing people, responding to major incidents, capturing aerial crime scene imagery at road traffic collisions, large public events, and other policing operations. Officers can get an aerial view of large areas in a short period of time, so their use can help track down offenders suspected of crime or disorder. Equally, drones can help find missing people or provide live feeds for officers at major incidents, football games or protests where there are large crowds. And that's it. That's your lot. So if you're looking up at the sky, you see a strange light with a beam coming out of it and a policeman underneath. Like that. It's a police drone. It's not aliens. Honest governor. It's not aliens. It's the fuzz. So that's your lot. That's your lot for today. Quite an interesting selection of stories. If I say so myself, I thought they were quite good. So there we go. So we'll leave it there for another week. So wherever you are in the universe, look after each other. And until next time, I'll say thee and keep watching the skies. Little alien telling you to keep watching the skies.